Hi there! As Anti-Parallel comes to a close, Mika has announced that Basti will be the first character to bridge the gap to the next major event. She's a Corrosion Support who fills the void as the team's dedicated healer, while also offering plenty of amplification and utility. In fact, she's Cluekei's new favorite partner, though I suppose that matters a little less right now, considering we still don't have her expansion key on the global server. But given that its arrival is only a matter of time, and patience is the ultimate virtue of free-to-play gacha gamers, there's no reason to dismiss Basti's value. As usual, we'll break down her kit and gameplay, investment breakpoints and builds before diving into her overall strengths and weaknesses. Without further ado, let's get to it. As the battle starts, Basti passively creates toxic mist tiles at the location of all allies. At the start of every round, allies standing on such tiles gain attack up to and Insignia of Camaraderie for 2 turns, which boosts their attack and damage by 15% respectively. In particular, the attack bonus has been missing on the Corrosion team and adds good value when not using characters like Yohi or Springfield. Moreover, both effects are generic, making Basti a fine support for any lineup. Then, as Mechty creates toxic mist underneath the boss, Basti's passive activates once more. Enemies standing on allied toxic mist tiles receive her debuff, Scribbled Funny Face. This increases the target's corrosion damage taken by 15% and also heals the attacker by 15% of the damage dealt. Basti's second fixed key Street Art also triggers at this point. So long as the team's toxic mist tiles are present anywhere on the field, she boosts everyone's corrosion damage by 7%. So in addition to the generic 15% attack and damage bonus, she also provides a 22% corrosion specific damage amp. Next, Basti can equip a fixed key that negates the downside of Lin's key radio invitation. Remember that this shackles a doll in place, making them unable to move or actively use skills, which in turn applies a unique 15% defense reduction to all targets on field. Normally, the workaround for this effect was to bring Mechty, as she requires neither movement nor active skill usage to function. Now, as Lin shackles Basti, her fixed key Pain Dependence triggers. This immediately removes any crowd control effect the moment they are applied, allowing you to use Lin's key even when Mechty gets the boot. You can perhaps see where this is going. To add insult to injury, Basti's second skill creates toxic mist tiles in a 3-tile wide area and applies Toxin Inundation to targets in range. Remember that this is another corrosion debuff out of Mechty's kit, which increases corrosion vulnerability by 25%. With that, there's unfortunately a bit of overlap between the two. Here are their buffs side by side. As we've just learned, Basti provides up to 62% bonus damage for corrosion allies, plus a quasi-permanent 50% attack bonus. In contrast, Mechty buffs corrosion damage up to 50%, while a lot of her remaining amplification goes towards AoE support attacks, 80% in total. As such, Mechty is still better at boosting Phaetusa and Petya, but Basti replaces the sleepyhead when building a lineup for Cluekei, and of course in mixed compositions. However, Cluekei doesn't have her expansion key yet, so Phaetusa is currently still the better main DPS, which justifies Mechty's existence for a little longer. Be that as it may, besides being a better amplifier for Cluekei, Basti also provides more instances of corrosion damage to help with the reset of Cluekei's ultimate, which brings us to her actual gameplay. Basti starts every round with her S2, which summons a deceptively named Cutie. Up to 2 of these can exist at the same time, or 3 at V1 and above. This is essentially a landmine, which self-destructs when enemies are within 3 tiles, dealing 100% of Basti's attack as AoE corrosion damage. The Cutie will leave behind toxic mist tiles and apply Toxin Inundation to targets in range, plus stun if the enemy is not immune. Note that everyone on the team receives attack up to and Insignia of Camaraderie once more. Before, I only mentioned that the buffs are applied at the start of the turn when a doll is standing on an allied toxic mist tile. Additionally, while standing on such tiles, they are also gained when Basti uses her S2 to summon a Cutie. Therefore, you're practically guaranteed permanent uptime of the buffs, so long as the team doesn't move too much around the map. Here, you can see the stun trigger against the boss and healing equal to 80% of Basti's attack for herself. After the skill concludes, Basti gets another action similar to Extra Command, but excluding her basic attack from the options. Basti's S2 has no cooldown and no confectance cost, but simply a usage limit. At V0, she can use a skill twice per round and 3 times at V1 and above. With that, she repeats her action once more, summoning another Cutie for an instant detonation that deals corrosion damage, creates toxic mist tiles, and applies Toxin Inundation. Now she gets to conclude her turn by using either her S1 or ultimate. Since her S1 only provides healing and mobility, you prioritize the ultimate when you want to maximize damage. The ultimate lets you select a target to which Basti will deal 150% of her attack as corrosion damage in a huge 8-tile AoE. Then it applies 1 stack of Grudge. When an enemy with this debuff makes an attack, Basti essentially launches an interception, consuming 1 stack in the process. Before Basti's V5, this only stacks once, so she'll need steep investment if you want to see multiple out-of-turn attacks from her. Here, as the boss's turn starts, the debuff is still applied. Before it can make its attack, Basti consumes Grudge and launches her support action, dealing 100% of her attack as AoE corrosion damage. As you can see, it functions just like an interception. With this, Basti delivers up to 4 instances of corrosion damage. On the next round, Basti starts like always by using her S2 twice to summon and detonate 2 cuties. Note that if you're summoning them with no opponents around, they remain inactive until a target walks within range. Basti can only plan 2 of these at a time, so unfortunately she won't be able to create a minefield in normal map content. Once she's done with her S2, she's again left with a choice between her S1 and ultimate. Since the ultimate has a 1-turn downtime and she's locked out of using her basic attack, you only get to use her S1, which is a utility skill. It costs 3 Confectance points and lets you select an ally to teleport to a friendly Toxic Mist tile. This moves both Basti and her target to the chosen location. Then she applies continuous healing, restores HP equal to 100% of her attack, cleanses 2 debuffs and restores 5 stability. Basti's position is within 1 tile of the chosen location. In case she needs repositioning, she gets 6 tiles of extra movement before the skill concludes. While her S1 is unnecessary for Gunsmoke, it's a useful ability in more challenging content, offering great mobility and strong sustain. Basti restores only 1 Confectance point per round via passive, so it takes her 3 turns to fully recharge the skill's cost. In Gunsmoke, there's no real need to cycle the skill every other round, but your points suffice to do so until the end of a 7-turn battle. In non-turn limited content, you'd be looking at a downtime on turn 8 or turn 10 if you equip her first fix key for 3 bonus Confectance points at the start of battle. With that, you've already seen all there is to Basti's kit. Her rotation is straightforward and doesn't really change with the upgrades. You're using her as 2 every round for as many times as you can, which is twice at V0 or thrice at V1 and above. Then you use her ultimate on odd numbered rounds to maximize damage, which also grants you 1 out-of-turn attack via Grudge. On even numbered rounds you either end your turn after the S2s, or you conclude with her as 1 for healing, cleansing and mobility. This is less relevant in Gunsmoke, but may even become a priority in normal map content for the ability to traverse longer distances. Her turn order is generally early as is customary for support characters, in particular when you rely on her to create Toxic Mist or to refresh the attack buff. Moving on to Basti's investment breakpoints. Basti is a complete character at V0 and doesn't require any further investment to properly function. Unless she's your waifu or you're swimming in resources, there's little reason to go deeper. With that out of the way, her early upgrades improve her role as a supporter, while the latter half transforms her into a capable sub-DPS. Basti's V1 grants her an additional use of her S2 for a total of 3 attacks from her cuties per round. This enables her to single-handedly reset Cluque's ultimate cooldown, making the 2 a self-reliant core that can slot into any lineup. It also means a bit of extra damage from Basti, but her output at lower investment is negligible. Her V3 is a breakpoint for her role as an amplifier, doubling the effects of Insignia of Camaraderie and Scribbled Funny Face. This increases her corrosion damage boost by 30% from a total of 62% to 92%. In practice, this translates to a damage increase of about 10% for Cluque, so the cost effectiveness of this upgrade is low. Finally, starting from a V5, Basti's own damage becomes a force to be reckoned with. At V5, Grudge can stack up to 3 times and has its multiplier doubled. Remember that this is a debuff applied by her ultimate, which grants her the interception-like support attacks. At V6, Basti gains a stacking 3% attack increase every time a cutie self-detonates. With 3 cuties per turn, you're looking at an attack bonus of up to 9% per round, ramping up to 63% in a 7-turn battle such as Gunsmoke. The damage multiplier of cuties also increased by 30%, and it will apply a random powerful debuff upon detonation. The latter effect overlaps with Lint, so its effectiveness varies with the lineup. At full investment, Basti currently boasts the highest DPS among all supporters and is only outdone by the upcoming Sextants. That said, for anyone looking to strike a balance between investment and return, here's a comparison between different setups and their impact on a V6 Cluque's damage output. Note that these calculations were done for Cluque with the expansion key, which more than doubles her DPS. As of now, Faytuza is the team's main damage dealer, making Mechty currently the better support choice for the team if you have access to a V6 Faytuza. Of course, that wouldn't stop you from running both on a mono corrosion lineup. This graph simply addresses how much Basti adds over Mechty at V0 and V3 respectively. As you can see, substituting Mechty for Basti improves Cluque's output by 22%, This is largely due to the 15% attack buff. If you have someone else to supply the buff, for instance Yowie, Springfield or the upcoming Lorelei, Basti's impact greatly diminishes, offering only 5% more amplification over Mechty. Nevertheless, she is able to bridge the downtime that the other supports may have with the buff and largely lifts Klukei's lineup restrictions. Her V3 effectively only increases Klukei's damage by 12%, making it highly inefficient as compared to picking up a single copy of Basti. Next, Basti's signature weapon offers a modest team-wide 10% corrosion damage boost, plus more personal damage for Basti, up to 27.5% from the effect, weapon trait and imprint combined. A 10% damage bonus for the team is on the lower end when it comes to supporting weapons, making its utility equivalent to that of Mechty's weapon. For most players, it's a safe skip. Hestia is an accessible alternative as it can be obtained from the standard banner or Dorito shop. At lower investment, the damage difference for Basti is around 6%, but her personal damage is minor then. At V6, the difference shrinks to a measly 1% because the 25% crit damage from Hestia becomes much more valuable for Basti than the saturated attack bonus. For light spenders, the Papa Figo from the Battle Pass is a decent third option, offering a 15% increase to damage and healing at baseline, up to 30% at max calibrations. As a final note of caution, the Stechkin might sound like a good fit for Basti, but apparently her skills don't trigger the weapon effect. Therefore, you should prioritize one of the SSR options. For attachments, I recommend Phase Strike or Close Assault for efficiency, depending on what pieces you have lying around. While you'd maximize her damage with Corrosion Boost, I strongly advise against farming and shipping sets that are not generic for marginal gains. Especially at lower investment, you shouldn't be concerned with improving Basti's damage output by a few percentage points. Her subsets are the usual, with attack as the priority, since both her damage and healing scale off it. Continuing with Basti's fixed key setup. Her only mandatory key is Street Art, which boosts the team's corrosion damage by 7% if friendly toxic missiles are anywhere on the field. Since that's a given with Basti, the effect is practically permanent. Her third key is used alongside Lint to negate the shackle effect of her key Radio Invitation, which reduces the enemy's defense by 15%. It's not necessary when you bring Mechty along for the ride, so its practical use is for situations without the sleepyhead. Her fifth key grants buff removal to her cuties, which may be useful for some boss fights, most likely Gunsmoke. For more challenging stages in which sustain may be an issue, you can equip her fourth key, which heals the ally with the lowest HP on the field for 100% of Basti's attack upon summoning a cutie. Lastly, Basti's common key is one of the rarer keys that offers a 10% elemental damage boost to the wearer. It is a bit more conditional than some of the alternatives, but works well for the Corrosion team's damage dealers. Indeed, having the enemy stand on Corrosion tiles is not a big ask so long as Basti is on the lineup, making this a great key for Klukei or Phaetusa, depending on who's more invested. In summary, Basti is Klukei's new favorite partner and a strong addition to the Corrosion lineup. While I didn't heavily emphasize her healing capabilities in this review, she offers decent sustain with both passive and active healing, finally filling the long absent role of a dedicated healer for the team. More importantly, she packs plenty of amplification, providing a general 15% damage boost, a 47% corrosion specific bonus, and the much coveted 15% attack buff. The latter alone is enough to secure a position on the mono Corrosion lineup. However, there's a bit of overlap with Mechty, since both share the Toxin Inundation debuff, thereby reducing the value they jointly provide. If you already have an alternative source for the attack buff, there's even less incentive to pull for Basti, assuming you own Mechty. That said, her ability to easily cover the map with toxic mist tiles further underscores her eagerness to replace the Sleepyhead. Especially against multiple opponents, Basti has the upper hand when it comes to applying weakness to the enemy. She is also better suited for mixed compositions alongside Klukei due to her generic buffs and multiple corrosion attacks that help reset Klukei's ultimate cooldown. If that synergy is what you have in mind for her, you'll have to wait a little longer though for Klukei's expansion key. Originally, Basti released after Klukei's upgrade, whereas we are currently in an awkward timeline where Klukei takes a backseat to Phaetusa and Basti can't quite replace Mechty when Phaetusa is the team's main carry. Regardless, Basti is a safe investment for the future, albeit somewhat of a luxury upgrade for anyone who owns Mechty already. Luckily, her kit is fully functional at V0 and requires no further vertical investment, not even a signature weapon. While she gains a bit more amplification up to V3, there's really no cost-effective breakpoint before her V6. If you intend to invest further, be prepared to go all the way. At full investment, she turns into a very strong sub-TPS, boasting the highest damage among all supporters until the release of Sextons. In conclusion, picking up a single copy of Basti is a safe bet for anyone with an invested Klukei, while further investment is discouraged, unless you're looking to swipe for your favorite gacha game. That brings us to the end of this video. As always, I hope this overview helped you better understand Basti's kit and her place in the current meta. Let me know what your pulling plans are, and while we're at it, make a prediction on when you expect Lucas's expansion key to release. Although we're powerless against the whims of the Mika overlords, you may find a silver lining to their madness. With 2 filler patches ahead and the Queen's upgrade delayed, your current teams remain relevant with no pressure to change. If you're low on funds, this means more time to save. In any case, thank you so much for watching. See you next time.